Hello fam! Happy Mindful Monday day. It's late. I'm really sorry it's so late. It's been a whirlwind getting things back together after the holidays. In this series of Mindful Mondays, we journey deep down the rabbit hole into concepts and studies that I am venturing into under the jurisdiction of self-actualization. It's very true. It's very near and dear to my heart. With people in my life, and I just want to welcome you to 2020 and thank you so much for being here with me today. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that is really relevant in situations and relationships that surround me in my life. It is also very relevant in things that I have had to overcome in my life. Addictions, they come in all shapes and sizes, and I'm realizing that they can live in us in a lot of ways. It's not just the things that are really obvious like drugs or alcohol, but sometimes it's also an approach to life. The way that we approach our relationships, the way that we approach ourselves every day. It could even mean hiding ourselves away in a world that really needs us and really needs us to shine our light and really needs us to be available for it. You know, we can be addicted to our bed, for example. As lovely as this is, and wonderful as it is, it can formulate an addiction. Now, under the jurisdiction of self-actualization, our highest potential as an individual is always relative to us, and thus our obstacles and our addictions are also just as customized to us as well. It's wise not to overlook that perhaps, although it doesn't look like an addiction for someone else, it could inherently look like an addiction for you. Just as a disclaimer. Anything else that contributes to a cyclical pattern that we feel is in control of our lives over us can all fall into that classification of addiction. We're different in that sense sometimes, but fundamentally we're the same because the goal is the same. The goal is to have complete access to our highest potential as a completely individualized and self-actualized person. And like a really quick example, my friend he is in a heavy transformation period right now, and he is making some very interesting choices, and he's really getting down to the crux of who he is. And he's realizing that in this time when a lot of what he is familiar with and what is comfortable for him is taken away, he's realizing that a lot of that stuff was hiding a form of addiction. And it started to become very apparent in him in his yoga class when he realized that at times when he would get uncomfortable, there was always a knee-jerk reaction for him to run away, get up, and leave the class to drink some water. But the water was the excuse. The water was the addiction, because the water took him away from his ability to deal with what was uncomfortable. It was really interesting, and I was really grateful that he shared that with me, because something as simple as water can prove itself to be this sort of escape mechanism that we can focus on and start to idolize, and it ends up being counterproductive to the intensity of our potential. With that, I want to go into a few concepts that we can utilize and that we can harness when we are dealing with the inherent addictive behavior of being human. Because another fundamental truth is that humans are inherently addicted. We are creatures of habit. That is what we are. So if you're beating yourself up for having an addiction problem, the truth is being able to just say that you are an addict means that you are the same as every other person living on this entire planet. Humans are addicted. I am an addict. You are an addict. We are all addicts. We are all creatures of comfort. We are all on that road together. And in the journey to self-actualization, fundamentally, it's all about reaching your highest potential and having the best addictions possible. As we said before in the episode where I was in Paris, to increase impact means we have to accept things as they are. So here are some steps that I've come across, things that have helped me along the way, things that are continuing to help me along the way. And I hope as I open this discussion to all of us, we're all able to learn together. This isn't an easy road, it's a taboo road. From my heart to yours, these are the best truth bombs that I can muster up. So number one, addiction is a slowly won over thing. Meaning addiction doesn't just happen, right? Addiction to something specific that is not expressing your highest potential, something that is holding you back, processed or bad foods, drugs, drugs, sex, or alcohol, or anger, or any of these expressions that probably don't represent your biggest potential. You have to understand that it has grown over time. There was a time, once upon a time, where it started. Who were you? What were you telling yourself about the substance or the action that turned into an addiction later? Because it was here that a false version of yourself started to become incorporated into your life and where it was born. Begin to give it an understanding and a friendship that it didn't have back then. It may have been something that you started in secret. It may have been something that you started with a lot of shame. Maybe it was something that you didn't realize you were getting yourself into. Understand that there is a distinction between then and now. Number 2, there is also a self-definition that may have happened where you identified with that addiction as an identity. So in that case, are you now the partier? Are you now the drinker who can drink anyone under the table? Are you now the badass who is always getting into fights at the bar? Is it a possibility that the identity of the addiction has been given more power than your individual identity? Because if it is, there's a possibility that there is also a symbiotic relationship happening where you are making sure that everything and everyone is confirming that your addiction is true and that your identity within the addiction is true. Or are you matching your addiction with an environment that actually supports it? Are you consciously or unconsciously giving your addiction more power than any other identity that you could possibly have? And then if it's true, it's really important to be able to say this stuff out loud. So for example, I admit that I have been using my family as an excuse to have an addiction to fast food. That's an example. I admit that my dissatisfaction with my work has led to my addiction to drugs and alcohol. It's important to say this stuff out loud. It's important to be able to connect with the outer world in a more authentic way. And it's important to be able to call this stuff out for what it is. Number 3, we had an entire video during Thanksgiving dedicated to forgiveness. Forgiveness is really the antidote at this point. What we have done up until this point isn't bad, and we all do it. All of us do it. But forgiveness of the circumstances, of the people who have created this addiction in you, and forgiving yourself for allowing it to perpetuate in your life is so critical. So just take that time with yourself, truly, to be able to forgive. Forgiveness is like a wave up to a shore on a desolate island that thought it would never see life again. But with that wave, for the first time, comes fish and coral and gifts and bottles and notes and connection. We all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. And forgiveness is the remembrance of that. It is the remembrance of our humanity, and it is the acceptance of our humanity. We weren't born to be perfect, but we were born to remember who we were and to remember our connection with one another. Number 4. We have to build a foundation for ourselves. And that foundation can come from truths that we pick up in our lives. Things that we learn from our parents, memes on the internet, classes that we take, seminars that we go to. But the objective is to always have the eye on the prize. A fundamental, rudimentary process of being able to change the cycles and the formalities of our addictions means we are keeping our eye on the prize of transformation. Get up one more time than you've fallen. It will happen. I promise you, it will happen. Number 5, like I said before, we're all addicts. So there is a trick. We have to replace the bad habits with good habits. We have to replace the bad addictions with good addictions. There is an energy in addiction. In essence, addiction is good because it's inherent. We are creatures of comfort, and self-actualization is living to our highest potential. And we need all parts of ourselves in order to get there. So you heard it here. Addiction is good because it's natural. We get in trouble when we allow ourselves to get extorted for this natural element of who we are as human beings. And there are a lot of industries and a lot of decision makers who know that humans are always addicted. But when you break it down, addiction is the elements of focus and dedication and determination. And because of it, you can't just take the elements of your addiction away and not replace it with something good and expect the whole thing to work. It's not going to work because you're still addicted. So it's not about giving up being addicted. It's only about giving up what you're addicted to and replacing it with something better. So in essence, we can trick the addiction into working for us instead of against us. Number 6, in the process of stepping away from what is bad for what is good, Sometimes we can experience something called survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt is basically where we voluntarily don't choose better choices for ourselves because we feel bad for the people around us who aren't making the same decisions. And because they are incapable of making these decisions for themselves, we give away our power, our potential, our dreams, our ambitions to do better for ourselves and for the people around us because we feel bad that those we care about can't do it with us. Or we feel bad for the people around us who are also suffering, and therefore we believe that we don't deserve to thrive. This is called survivor's guilt. It is a very, very real thing, and it is very, very crucial to look at when you are on the road to self-actualization. Only when you get better can you be the influence to help the people around you who you care about. Guilt and shame about recovery will take you away from being able to help the people around you. Number 7, share, and if you need to, get help with the patterns of your addiction. What is the only thing that can diffuse the darkness? It's the light. As a virtue, self-actualization means living out loud. It means airing dirty laundry. It means being able to say and do and be all the icky stuff for the purpose of it being transformed. There is always going to be someone in your community, someone in your life, someone in your friends group, someone in your family who you can share this stuff with and gain support from. And I know from experience, as long as you have that one person and you're being confessional about it, things are going to start to change in your life. As someone who has kept myself hidden and away from the world for a really long time, I will tell you that you cannot do these things on your own. You need the connection with other people to be seen in a way where you are self-actualizing through learning your darkness and being able to let the light in and let someone else see. So as we share the good things with the world as easily as we do, it's always important just as much to have those people who you can share the not so good things with. Isolation and alienation and pretending can sometimes infiltrate our mind in a way that shakes us up so much that we believe that we're worse and worse and worse than we actually are. Lastly, number 8, what is your personal ethos? It is very important as we're flailing out in the world and we are taught a lot of things that aren't inherently true, to anchor yourself in a foundational belief. Find what is good in the world. And what is good in the world can always be found by what bears fruit in the world. And in this particular case, what bears fruit is what bears the long-standing implications of transmuting addiction into something that is working for your life and bettering everything. Support groups, scripture, which is where I'm at, a belief in our purpose, self-actualization, or just truth. But we have to have a foundation that we can keep coming back to. Because at the end of the day, what are we trading for our addiction that isn't bearing fruit? Things like joy and happiness and community and pleasure and true intimacy and friendship and our ultimate usefulness, our ability to serve, and then ultimately our fulfillment. This is about taking your power back. You have to understand that there are many, many, many multi-billion-dollar industries that are supporting your inherent addictive behavior. There are people who spend their lives figuring out exactly how to feed your inherent addictive behavior and take away your focus on things that could actually fulfill you and make you happy. And they are making a ton of money doing it off of you. So we have to be objective and really look at exactly what our addictions are giving us, because it does become harsh and hardened. And we have to remember that there is a fundamental truth that can replace any addiction that we have. And in this, it's self-actualization. And we give way to addictions a lot of the times in this process because it's scary to be our truth. It's scary to speak our truth. It's scary to talk about what we don't like. It's scary to talk about what we do like. We feel like we can't say what we believe, how we feel, that we need help, who we like, where we want to go. But just as much as our self-chatter is so personal and is keeping us away from the truth of who we are, so is our potential. So it's time to take this stuff seriously. We have tools and we have traits that are inherent to us that are not meant to be exploited. They are meant to be harnessed by the potential of what we are. You are not your false self. There is a version of us that is our highest potential. We are not the identity of our addictions first and foremost. We have to forgive others and ourselves. We get back up one time more than we fall. We accept that we're all addicts and we just give ourselves new habits to replace the old ones. We abandon survivor's guilt. We share our truth with at least one other person, and we create a foundation for ourselves in life that we can always depend on. Let's remember all the stuff that life had to offer together, because it's so much more than what we originally thought. All right, guys, that's it for Mindful Mondays. I hope that this impacted you in a way that you feel open to sharing with me anything that's going on with you. So please feel free to write me. Let me know if you're going through anything at this moment in time. I'm always here to listen. Okay? Much love, guys. I'll see you next week.